We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? I give the call to the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, and I refer to the front page of today's Australian. Under pressure from Senator Dean Smith and the other place, Labor has finally released a secret government document which warns of a, quote, further significant increase in retail electricity prices. It was also revealed that the Clerk of the Senate called Labor's obfuscation, quote, not acceptable. Why did this minister do everything he could to hide this document from the Australian public, instead of doing everything he could to reduce power prices by $275?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I'm deeply grateful to the Leader of the Opposition for the question, although I think it might have been better, Mr Speaker, if she had been more transparent with the House, because the Leader of the Opposition has asserted that the incoming government brief said one thing, didn't read the full quote for the incoming government brief. I will, Mr Speaker. It says,
Order.
It says,
on my left.
Mr Speaker, and I quote, the draft default market offer points to a further significant increase in retail electricity prices next financial year. Now, the important thing about the incoming government briefs referring to the default market offer is that that market offer was already public, not only when I received the incoming government brief, so it was hardly a revelation, but before the election, Mr Speaker. Because the default market offer increase was released
on my left.
by the Australian Energy Regulator before the 2025 election. Now, that is not uncommon for a minister to receive a default market offer just before an election. And the minister has an opportunity, has a decision point before them at that point. The minister can say, well, it should be released in a transparent fashion. The minister can do that. That's what I did. Here's the press release from me referring to the release of the default market offer, this secret briefing that the Leader of the Opposition is so concerned to read about on the front page of the Australian today. I tabled my press release, Mr Speaker, from the 11th of March 2025, which was before the federal election. The alternative option available to a minister when receiving a default market offer that is high before an election is to change the law to keep it secret. That is the alternative option before a minister, an option I declined to take, an option one of my predecessors did take. The Minister for Industry, Energy and Emissions Reduction on the 31st of March 2022, almost 3 years before, changed the law by regulation to keep it secret until after the election. I table that as well. Now, the Leader of the Opposition quotes the incoming government brief. If the Leader of the Opposition had read on, she might have further quoted that brief. Decarbonising the electricity and energy system is foundational to achieving a whole-of-economy transformation, maintaining energy affordability and reliability. There's a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more where that came from, Mr Deputy Speaker. I hope I get more questions from the opposition on the incoming government brief.
Member for Moncrieff can cease interjecting for the remainder of question time. The call to the honourable member for Hasluck.
Minister for Resources and Northern Australia, how is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its commitment to create secure and safe jobs by boosting Australia's critical minerals and rare earths industry? What other approaches have been proposed?
Call to the Minister for Northern Australia and the Minister for Resources.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Hasluck for her question. I want to take this brief moment to express my deepest sympathies to the families and workmates of the two workers who have died in a mining accident in Cobar earlier today. And it's a reminder to each of us here and around the country that mining is dangerous work and that every person who works in this industry deserves to come home safely at the end of a swing or at the end of a shift. Mr Speaker, Australia's resources sector is the engine room of our economy. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to capture new investment and create good, safe, well-paid jobs across the country by supporting the development of our critical minerals and rare earths industry. This government and our critical minerals strategy sets out a clear vision to make Australia a globally significant producer of both raw and processed critical minerals. The historic Critical Minerals Framework Agreement signed between the Prime Minister and the President of the United States last week is a major step in developing and growing this vital sector. This means good, safe, secure jobs for thousands of Australians in processing and mining in regions and industrial areas right across the country. Last week's historic signing is just the start of many more partnerships with the United States and Australia in our resources sector. And I want to take this moment to thank Ambassador Rudd for his tireless advocacy of our critical minerals and rare earths industry in Washington. And I will continue to work with other friends around the world as well, and later this week I look forward to representing Australia at a meeting of G7+ ministers in Toronto to further our work to diversify global critical minerals supply chains for the benefit of Australian workers, jobs and industries, and for our national security. Now, Mr Speaker, those opposite might not want to hear it, but it is a fact that no government has invested more in the future of Australia's resources than the Albanese Labor government. No government has done more to develop the critical minerals and rare earths industry and therefore the resources sector as a whole than this Albanese Labor government. Now, the truth is sometimes hard to take for those opposite, Mr Speaker, but let's look at their track record. They opposed the production tax credits for critical minerals. They kicked off about the Critical Minerals Strategic Reserve, which puts Australia in the perfect place to work with the United States. And let's not remember that churlish moment when they wanted to rewrite the periodic table and make gas a critical mineral. You would have thought that topped it, but now they're all over the shop in relation to environmental reform, claiming credit one minute and then bagging it the next. The truth is, Mr Speaker, those opposite don't know where they are in respect of the resources industry. They certainly don't know where they are with environmental law reform. They are no help whatsoever to the critical minerals industry. Meanwhile, Australia can trust in the Albanese Labor government to support the resources sector.
Member for Page, trying to give the call to the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition, who now will ask a question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. In January, the Prime Minister said of Tomago, quote, 5,000 jobs depend on this facility. But Tomago is now in crisis, with its CEO saying future energy prices are not commercially viable. Under Labor, there have been closures of the Kwinana and Kalgoorlie smelters in WA, emergency bailouts in Hobart, Whyalla, Port Pirie and Mount Isa, and mayday calls from Bell Bay and Boyne smelters. How can Labor promise a future made in Australia when all it actually delivers is future shutdowns, future job losses and higher energy prices?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition for the question. The first thing to say is that today is confronting news for the employees of Tomago. And on behalf of the government, I'm sure, I express our solidarity with the workers of Tomago and the people of the Hunter, Mr Speaker, and that regardless of what comes, there is a month of consultation, but we will stand with the workers of Tomago regardless of what comes. That is the first and most important thing to say, Mr Speaker. Tomago, Rio and Tomago have today announced the beginning of a consultation about the future of the Tomago smelter. And it is true that they referred to energy prices in that announcement. And they made clear in the announcement today, and I quote, it is true that they said that finding competitively priced energy remains a central challenge. They went on to say, based on market proposals received to date, the cost of both coal-fired power and renewable energy options from January 2029 would increase significantly, fundamentally changing the operating economics and leaving the smelter unviable. That is what they said. And then they go on to say, Mr Speaker, that it is difficult to find enough renewable energy for the project. Now, what they're saying is what we say, that we need more of the cheapest and most reliable energy for our grid. Now, this is an important and difficult period for the Tomago smelter. The government has been in discussions with Rio through the Industry Minister, the Treasurer, myself and others for some time, and we will continue that over the coming months and for as long as it takes to make sure that nothing is left on the field when it comes to the future of the workers of Tomago. That's the view of our Hunter MPs. That's the view of every member of the Cabinet. What we won't do what you will not hear any one member of this government do is stand at this dispatch box and celebrate the death of manufacturing jobs in this country. I'm old enough to remember that happening. I'm old enough to have been sitting there when a Treasurer of Australia goaded manufacturing to leave this country. I remember what that was like, and it won't happen on our watch. And nor will we say, as a Liberal government said the last time an aluminium smelter closed in Australia, the then Treasurer said, if you get entirely despondent about one business closing, you'll ignore the fact that at any other one time other businesses are opening, and that's the jobs of tomorrow. Well, I'm sure that made the workers of Point Henry feel a lot better when the Treasurer of Australia, Joe Hockey, said that at this dispatch box when the last time an aluminium smelter announced their closure in this country. Now, we will work with the workers, the owners, the unions and the business community of the Tomago community, of the Hunter community to ensure not only that nothing is left on the field for the jobs of the day, but we are creating the jobs of tomorrow for them as well.
Before I call the member for Paterson, she can resume her seat. There was just far too much noise during that answer. Everyone's had a pretty good go. The member for Forrest, Lyne, Gippsland, the Leader of the Opposition. I appreciate your interjections, but it's not going to continue. The member for Fairfax as well. I forgot him. Order. No. We're just not going to have that level of interjection. It's not a wall of noise. The manager of opposition business is warned, and if he interjects again, he will leave the chamber. No questions about that one. Okay. We'll now hear from the member for Paterson.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Industry and Innovation. In light of reports regarding the future of the Tomago aluminium smelter, what is the Albanese Labor government doing to secure the Hunter's industrial future and ensure the Australian aluminium sector thrives?
The call to the Minister for Defence Industry and the Minister for Pacific Island Affairs.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for Paterson for her question.
Order. No, pause. The member for Fadden will leave the chamber. Interjecting like that before the minister has even said something is completely disrespectful and disorderly. For goodness sake. After I just told the chamber to lift standards, to have that carry on, everyone do better today. The minister has the call.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for Paterson for her question and her powerful advocacy for her community. Speaker, this morning Rio Tinto announced that it has decided to enter consultation on potential closure of Tomago aluminium in 2028. This is very tough news for my community, the Hunter, especially for the thousands of workers and their families. Let me be crystal clear. This consultation is a commercial decision taken by the business, and the government stands firmly with workers and the Hunter community. We're absolutely determined to explore every opportunity to secure new power purchasing agreements for the facility, because it's the right thing to do for these workers, it's the right thing to do for the Hunter, and it's the right thing to do for Australia. Speaker, the Hunter has been very good to Rio for decades, and it's time for Rio to do the right thing by the Hunter. We've made it very clear to Rio Tinto and the New South Wales government that we're here to support the facility if we have constructive partners. We continue to be in discussions with Rio and the state government on options for Tomago. Nothing is off the table. Let me repeat that, Speaker. Nothing is off the table. Australia is one of the few countries with a complete aluminium supply chain, and we're strengthening and growing every stage, fixing mining approvals while protecting the environment, securing affordable gas for alumina refineries through the gas market review, and backing our smelters with the green aluminium production credit.
Order.
This record $2 billion investment in the Australian-made aluminium industry is about supporting our industry to navigate the worldwide shift to new forms of electricity. We're working with state governments, industry, unions and affected communities nationwide to secure the sector's long-term future. And we're doing this because it's in the national interest. And before we see people trying to reheat the tired old climate wars, Rio has been very clear. Energy supply offers based on coal power are too expensive. Speaker, we're standing with the Hunter to support our industrial future. We've already committed $850 million for a missile factory, an Australian first, $432 million for a major renewable hydrogen project, $100 million to make the Port of Newcastle hydrogen ready, and $60 million for a manufacturing centre of excellence. But the truth is, Speaker, a decade of energy policy failure by those opposite left the facility in energy policy limbo, and we're facing the consequences now.
Order.
Speaker, the Australian government will always stand up for Australian workers and businesses, and we can call on Rio to continue to work with us on every option to support the community that supported them for decades.
The Minister's time has concluded. Before I call the member for Curtin, I'd like to do some acknowledgement. I'm pleased to inform the House that present in the gallery today are representatives from the House of Commons of the United Kingdom Defence Select Committee, led by Mr Tan Deshi, the Committee Chair and Member of Parliament for Slough. I'm also pleased to report to the House that in the gallery today is a delegation from the France-Australia Friendship Group of the French National Assembly, led by the group's President, Mr Eric Worth. Accompanied by the delegation is His Excellency Ambassador Pierre-André Imbert, and also a delegation from the European Parliament, led by the Chair, Mr Sean Kelly. And in the Northern Gallery, an esteemed delegation from the screen industry, including some of Australia's most famous actors and producers. Welcome to you all. I'm going to give the call to the honourable member for Curtin.
My question is to the Minister for Communications. The rise of AI is making it hard to tell what's real and what's not, and Australians need to be able to distinguish fact from fiction online. The government has committed to developing a national media literacy strategy. What's the progress on this strategy, and will it deal with AI deepfakes and misinformation?
The call to the Minister for Communications and the Minister for Sport.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker, and thank you to the member for Curtin for her question. We on this side of the House agree this is a really important topic, and we've been putting a lot of effort into the space of the future of news media, what online safety looks like, where this is going, how this dovetails into the work that we want to do with AI. It's a really interesting space, and I appreciate your interest in it. We really care about this issue, and I think we are very clear-eyed about the fact that AI is changing the landscape, and it is changing it very quickly. And whilst we on this side of the House want to make the most of every opportunity that AI presents us, we want to be a country that is seen across the world as being forward-leaning on AI and making the most of the opportunities, there are things that we need to do to make sure that our kids in particular and everybody who engages with it online has the kind of literacy and resilience needed to be able to make the most of those opportunities whilst being safe at the same time. That is why what that looks like is the $132 million that we have put into Newsmap to make sure that we have a strong and vibrant news media space in this country, particularly in regional areas. We have put money into the Alana and Madeline Foundation, which works with children in schools to improve digital literacy and trying to recognise what you said in your question around what is and isn't real online. And we've put money into Newshound, which helps students and schools work on news media and come up through the ranks, perhaps to one day meet the high calibre of the press gallery that watch us on now. It is an interesting space. I talked to the media students at places like East Doncaster that I was at with the member for Menzies recently. I think we can all agree that kids are swamped with what is happening. A platform like YouTube uploads 600 hours of content every 60 seconds. That is a reality that has been the case for some time now. That is not something new that we have time to prepare for, and that's why the News Media Literacy Plan that you referred to was announced by my predecessor as commencing this year a program of work that we're looking to do over the coming 3 years, and I look forward to continuing that work.
Give the call to the member for Dixon.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Acting Prime Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering cost of living relief for all Australians? And has there been any opposition to this approach?
Call to the Acting Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank the member for her question and congratulate her on her wonderful speech last night. At the election, we promised to increase paid parental leave, and as of the 1st of July this year, we've increased paid parental leave by 2 weeks and will increase it by another 2 weeks next year. In the 2022 election, we promised a real increase in the minimum wage, and just a few weeks later, one of the very first actions of our government was to do just that, and we did it again the next year and the next, and again this year. Indeed, the 3.5% wage increase for award workers this year has benefited 2.9 million Australian workers, and those on the minimum wage itself will receive an annual wage increase of $1,669, and that is at the heart of why we've got wages going again in this country after the lost decade of wage stagnation from those opposite. And at this election campaign, we promised the biggest boost in Medicare since its creation, leading to 9 out of 10 GP consults being bulk billed, and all of that begins next week on the 1st of November. Because with the Albanese government, we do what we say. When we promise, we deliver. And we are producing strong, unified adult government, and that stands in stark contrast from what we are seeing from those opposite. We have a former leader of the National Party, a deputy Prime Minister of this country, now openly wondering whether he's going to leave the coalition and become a foot soldier in Pauline Hanson's One Nation. We've got the member for Canning sulking there on the backbench and sharpening his claws because of his shocked discovery that industry policy isn't a part of Home Affairs. We are watching an existential battle as those opposite wonder whether or not the coalition are going to join the world in producing a low-carbon economy or whether they are going to follow the National Party in simply declaring that climate change is one big hoax. They no longer speak with one voice. They are not a coherent political movement. They are just a bin fire. And that fire is burning so out of control that if they are not careful, it is liable to melt the bin. Well, on this side of the House, we are all about the Australian people. Our only care is for their safety, for their prosperity and for their interest.
Order. The member for Goldstein. The member for Wannon has the call.
My question is to the Minister for Climate Change. On 20 January this year, the Prime Minister visited the Tomago aluminium smelter where 5,000 local jobs depend on its future and told journalists, quote, "This is what a future made in Australia looks like." Yet today, Tomago Aluminium said, and I quote, "Finding competitively priced energy remains a central challenge." How can Labor promise a future made in Australia when all it can actually deliver is higher energy prices?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and the Minister for Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for the question. We can more than promise a future made in Australia. We can deliver a future made in Australia because we believe in the opportunities for our great country. We believe in the opportunities for our great country in a decarbonising world, and we believe that the regions that have powered Australia for so long will power us into the future in a different way. And we believe that industries like aluminium need a supply of energy which is reliable, and we believe they need a supply of energy which is cheap, and that's why we are determined to continue the transition that's underway in this country, which those opposite would stop. They would stop if they had the opportunity. And again, the honourable member quotes the Tomago statement today, which I had already quoted, and I had already quoted because it says that the submissions they'd had from coal-fired power were uncompetitive, and that is true. And they also went on to say there is significant uncertainty about when renewable projects will be available at the scale we need. Now, that's unfortunate, but we agree we should have more renewables quicker. Those opposite would see less renewables across our country. Now, the Boyne Island smelter in Queensland has managed to get enough renewables. They've secured more than 2 gigawatts worth of renewables. That's a good thing. That is the future of aluminium smelting. The Tomago facility is in a different situation. As I said previously, this government, through the Prime Minister, the Treasurer, the Industry Minister, the member for Shortland and the Hunter members, will leave nothing on the table. We will continue the conversations with Tomago and with Rio, with the New South Wales government, to see if anything is possible to support this facility and to support the workers. And regardless of the outcome, we will be there for the people of the Hunter, because when the industrial change happens, it's important that government steps up. And this government will step up for the people of the Hunter. We will step up not only about Tomago but about the other opportunities in the Hunter, because the people of the Hunter, having powered Australia for so long and having shaped so much of Australia's future, deserve nothing less. They don't need a minister at this dispatch box celebrating the departure of manufacturing jobs, goading manufacturing to leave, or saying, don't worry, another business will come along, which is what Joe Hockey said when the Point Henry smelter, the last smelter to close in Australia, announced their closure in 2014. That's what would happen if those opposite held the levers. It will not happen on our watch.
The call to the honourable member for Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to ease cost of living and responsibly manage Australia's economy? How does this compare with other approaches the government is being asked to consider?
Call to the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When the good people of Hughes elected their first Labor member in almost 3 decades, they elected an absolute champion for their local community, and I thank him for his question. As the member for Hughes knows, at the last election we were promised responsible cost of living help, and we promised to strengthen Medicare, and we are delivering. Whether it's slashing student debt, cheaper medicines, more bulk billed GP visits, cheaper early childhood education, tax cuts, protecting penalty rates, getting wages moving again, all of this is about easing the cost of living in the most responsible way that we can. And we're doing that at the same time as we're getting the budget in much better nick than we inherited from those opposite. And today the global ratings agency Fitch has reaffirmed Australia's AAA credit rating. And in doing so, Mr Speaker, Fitch acknowledged our efforts in paying down the debt that we inherited. They praised our focus on productivity, and they outlined the private sector recovery underway in Australia's economy. This is another powerful endorsement of Labor's responsible economic management. It shows and it reminds us that under Labor, Australia has one of the strongest budgets in the G20, Mr Speaker, and that's helping us in the fight against inflation. Now, we've made good progress in the fight against inflation. It's around half of what we inherited from those opposite, and that's given the Reserve Bank the confidence to cut interest rates 3 times this year. But we know that people are still under pressure, and tomorrow we'll get the latest inflation figures. The market predicts inflation, headline inflation to tick up a bit tomorrow in the numbers because of the state energy rebates coming off. That's already been factored into the forecast of the Treasury and the Reserve Bank for some time. Inflation's ticked up for every major advanced economy in the world except the UK, where it is much higher than it is here. Now, we know that people are still under pressure. That's why our cost of living help, delivered in the most responsible way, is so important, Mr Speaker. We went to the election and we promised cost of living help, and we are delivering. We went to the election, we promised to manage the economy and the budget in the most responsible way that we can, and we are delivering on that front as well, Mr Speaker. Now, those opposite went to the election promising higher income taxes, bigger deficits and more debt, Mr Speaker. And since that election, they have learned nothing from the result. They haven't changed a bit. They are divided, they are divisive, and they are in disarray. Well, this government is not distracted by the madness of the extreme right and the internal politics of those opposite. We will continue to focus on responsible economic management and cost of living relief. They are divided, we are delivering, and that's the difference.
Before I call the member for Flynn, I'm also pleased to advise that in the Speaker's gallery is the Honourable Wendy Machin, a former State Minister in the Fayed government and the first woman to chair the New South Wales Parliament. And I was a little early in recognising the members of the French Assembly who have now joined us. A very welcome to our French friends. We give the call to the Honourable Member for Flynn.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Yesterday, the Minister informed the House that 200 jobs could be lost with the possible closure of Gladstone Power Station in 2029. Can the minister guarantee that thousands of jobs in the alumina sector in Gladstone will be safe under the government's renewable-only energy approach?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his question, but I disagree with the premise, just like I disagree with him that climate change isn't primarily caused by human activity. Mr Speaker, I disagree on a number of fronts with the member for Flynn. And he has mischaracterised the government's approach to energy policy, because our energy policy does support renewable energy, backed by gas peaking, backed by storage and backed by transmission, Mr Speaker. But there is a certain irony to the opposition asking about the future of industry under this government's energy policy, because it wasn't that long ago those opposite went to the election, went to the Australian people with an alternative energy plan that involved a heavy reliance on nuclear energy. Now, the opposition, under the stewardship of the now Shadow Treasurer, told the Australian people that their plan was 44% cheaper. And when you looked at their plan, it only was 44% cheaper because it assumed 40% less energy use across Australia. Now, how would you possibly get to 40% less energy use in Australia? Well, there's only one way. There's only one way, and that is to assume no heavy industry in Australia, because that is a big part of our industrial use. They're modelling that the member for Fairfax masterminded.
Members on my right, I'd like to hear from the member for one on a point of order.
It was an incredibly important question about jobs, and I would ask the minister to be relevant to the question.
Yeah, the minister wasn't asked about anything the opposition had done. He can do some compare and contrast. He's done that, so the remainder of his answer won't be about what the opposition or the former shadow minister's done, because he wasn't asked about that. So he'll need to be directly relevant. If he's talking about opposition policies, he'll need to make it directly relevant to the question he was asked about the jobs in the member's electorate.
Thank you. And it is clear and it is true that there is an alternative before the Australian people. And under this government, I can guarantee that we will ensure that energy policy is designed to ensure the supply of cheap and reliable energy, not only for Australia's households, which I'll get to later in question time perhaps, but Australia's heavy industry. Australia's heavy industry. And when we went to the election, we did not promise or assume that our energy use in Australia would halve from 45.9 terawatt-hours to 23.3 terawatt-hours. We did not assume that halving of energy use in heavy industry would occur. Now, the Tomago smelter uses 8.3 terawatt-hours of electricity. The only way you could achieve the outcomes promised by those opposite is to assume the closure of the Tomago smelter and the aluminium industry in the electorate of Flynn. That's the only way they could make their sums add up. That is not our approach. We will ensure a future for Australian industry while those opposite assume it disappears to justify their policy fantasies.
Call to the member for McEwen.
My question is the Assistant Treasurer and Minister for Financial Services. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Australia's superannuation system to ensure it's fairer, more sustainable and delivers better outcomes for low-income workers?
Call to the Assistant Treasurer and the Minister for Financial Services.
Speaker, I thank the member for McEwen for that question, and I'd like to acknowledge that he's been a champion for superannuation for many years. He's worked in the transport sector and he understands that it's so important to extend superannuation to sectors where there's varied work practices and hours. Speaker, Labor is the party of superannuation. Our priority is ensuring that superannuation delivers on its purpose of providing income for a dignified retirement. We have already implemented a number of reforms to strengthen the superannuation system over the term of government, including paying superannuation on government-funded paid parental leave, increasing the superannuation guarantee rate to 12%. Reaching 12% was the cherry on the top of decades of reforms by Labor governments. We are currently pushing forward with more important reforms to make our system fairer, including implementing payday super and a major boost to the low-income superannuation tax offset. First, on payday super, we know that for too long many workers have waited months to receive their super. Under Labor's reforms, from the 1st of July 2026, employers will be required to pay super at the same frequency as wages. This is a simple, practical change, but one that will make a huge difference to millions of workers. It means more frequent contributions, earlier compounding returns and stronger retirement balances for millions of Australians. The ATO estimates that more than $5 billion in super goes unpaid each year at the moment. That's money that should be sitting in workers' accounts, not lost from their future. For a 35-year-old who has unpaid super recovered, it can mean more than $30,000 more in their balances at retirement. This matters most for people who need it the most, women and low-paid workers who are more likely to be in casual or insecure work and who are more likely to miss out on super when it isn't paid promptly. The second reform is our boost to the low-income superannuation tax offset. We're increasing the listo by $310 so that it's up to $810. We're also increasing the threshold from $37,000 to $45,000 from 1 July 27. This means that if you earn $45,000 or less, you are not paying any tax on your super contributions. This means that you could benefit by around $15,000 in your balance by retirement, a huge difference. At the same time, we're ensuring that our super system remains sustainable and fair by better targeting concessions for very large balances. We are the party of superannuation. We'll keep working to strengthen it, to make it fairer and more sustainable, because all Australians deserve a dignified retirement.
Call to the Manager of Opposition Business.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Industry and Innovation. The government has repeatedly refused to release the details of a secret departmental report obtained by the opposition under the existing Freedom of Information laws, which was given to the Minister for Industry and Innovation, titled Industry Facilities at Risk, Key Dates and Proposed High-Level Handling, given on 19 June 2025. Minister, how many Australian businesses are on this list of Australian industrial facilities at risk, and how many Australian jobs would be impacted should any of these at-risk facilities close?
We call to the Minister for Defence Industry, the Minister for Pacific Island Affairs and the Minister representing the Minister for Industry and Innovation.
I thank the member for his question. Given the very detailed nature of his question, referred to a document. I'm going to take it on notice and come back to you. That's the appropriate course of action for a minister representing another minister in this chamber.
The manager is seeking to table a document.
Nature of that answer, I seek to table the document, which is redacted. All the facilities are removed. You could get the original and give us the brief on which facilities are on this document.
You've asked the question. You're seeking to table a document. Is leave granted?
I appreciate the help, but we've already got it. We've already got it. That's the nature of a government document. Leave's not granted.
Leave is not granted. I thank the Manager of Opposition Business. And we'll hear from the member for Bass.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Women. How will the Albanese Labor government's changes to the low-income superannuation tax offset support working women?
The call to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Local Government and the Minister representing the Minister for Women.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the member for Bass for her question, but also just say to her what a delight it is to have her here in this chamber. It is such lovely to watch her developing into the job and the incredible compassion and care she is playing for young people and for women right the way through this country, but particularly for the people of Bass. It's always a privilege to stand in this House as a Minister of a Labor government and to talk about superannuation, because Labor is the party of super. We created it, we will always defend it, and we will always strengthen and make it fairer. The changes announced by the Treasurer will boost the low-income superannuation tax offset, the LISTO, by $310 to $810 and raise the eligibility threshold from $37,000 to $45,000 from the 1st of July 27. Because of these changes, in the 27-28 year, over 770,000 additional Australians will be eligible for LISTO, and over 490,000 Australians will receive a higher LISTO payment. And these changes will bring the total number of Australians eligible for Listo to 3.1 million, of which around 60% are women. Women's economic equality is core business for this government, and now the government is delivering more to help low-income workers, predominantly women, by ensuring the superannuation system is stronger and it is fairer. And now, as I said, the CEO of Women in Super has called this a monumental victory for fairness in our super system. She rightly pointed out that this reform is particularly significant for women who form the backbone of our essential services: carers, education aides, hospitality workers, sales assistants and health workers. Our reforms have been welcomed by HESTA, with HESTA CEO Debbie Blakely saying this will help ensure more than 1 million low-income earners can build a more secure retirement and help create a fairer superannuation system. It, of course, builds on the foundations we've already laid in paying superannuation on paid parental leave, which started on the 1st of July. Paying super on the Commonwealth Parental Leave Scheme is benefiting around 180,000 Australian mothers each year, and around 95% of Commonwealth parental leave payment flows to women. This is what a good Labor government does. Make sure that we are looking after working and low-income Australians, making sure that particularly women can have the opportunity to have a safe and secure retirement, and that is exactly what the Treasurer has done with the expansion of the Listo scheme to so many people, particularly women.
The call to the honourable member for Calare.
To the Treasurer. The government recently released its draft regulation on cash transactions, which only provides that cash has to be accepted for transactions of $500 or less and only at big supermarkets and major fuel retailers. With respect, it's a dud. It's the green light for the phasing out of cash in Australia. Why won't you support my private member's bill, which would apply to all businesses and all face-to-face transactions of $10,000 or less, and which would truly keep cash king in Australia?
Call to the Treasurer.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for his question. The Albanese government is taking steps to ensure that Australians can use cash to pay for more of the essential items that they need, Mr Speaker. And in saying that, I acknowledge from the outset that the honourable member would like us to go further than we are proposing to go. There are good reasons why we've settled on the model that we have settled on, and I'll run through those reasons in a moment. But I remind the honourable member that there is currently nothing preventing any business in Australia from refusing to accept cash, and we consider that situation to be unacceptable. That is the status quo that we've inherited. That's the status quo that we are changing, because we know that cash still plays an important role in the lives of many Australians. Right now there's no obligation, and we're changing that. We take seriously the issues the honourable member and others have raised with us. Now, in 2022, we know that the Reserve Bank found that around 7% of Australians still use cash for the majority of their in-person purchases. But we also know that many of those cash users are older Australians, and also Australians living in rural and regional communities like those represented by the honourable member. So last year we said we would introduce a cash acceptance mandate for the first time, and we're delivering on that promise. From the 1st of January, we're ensuring that Australians can buy their fuel and groceries by mandating cash acceptance for essential purchases through a mandatory industry code under the Competition and Consumer Act. Now, this follows extensive consultation. Earlier this year, we received 61 submissions from organisations, 4,000 from individuals. We met with a range of organisations about it. Now, we know that there's a balance to be struck here between ensuring that Australians can use cash to pay for essentials, but also we don't want to place unnecessary burdens on small businesses, particularly small businesses in the regions. And after that extensive consultation, we think that we've got the balance right. Now, we've also committed to reviewing the mandate after 3 years to ensure it's functioning as it's supposed to. We'll consider then whether it should be expanded. We'll look at its impact on businesses of all sizes and any developments in cash distribution and access at that time as well. We do know that for many Australians, cash is more than a payment method. It can be a lifeline. That's why we are taking the steps that we are taking to make sure that more businesses in this country have to accept cash for essential items. And that is a very substantial change, a very substantial improvement on the status quo that we inherited.
Give the call to the member for Adelaide.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer. What is the Albanese Labor government and the regulators doing to protect Australian consumers against misleading and deceptive conduct in the technology sector?
Give the call to the Treasurer.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Thanks to the member for Adelaide, not just for his question, but for standing up for consumers in his beautiful part of the world and indeed right around Australia. Yesterday, the ACCC launched legal proceedings in the federal court against Microsoft for allegedly misleading about 2.7 million Australians when communicating subscription options and price increases after it integrated its AI assistant Copilot into Microsoft 365 plans. Now, since the 31st of October last year, Microsoft told subscribers it would renew subscriptions and customers would need to either accept it or cancel their subscription. And the ACCC alleges this was false and misleading because a third option wasn't disclosed. Now, Mr Speaker, whether it's the regulators or this government, we take these sorts of developments very seriously. This case is currently before the courts, and for that reason I won't comment on the specifics, but I will say this. There is no place for dodgy and deceptive behaviour like that being alleged in this case. If it's proven that this has happened, it amounts to deception on an industrial scale. So this week, the regulator has sent a powerful message to tech companies. We won't let Australians be treated like mugs. Now, Mr Speaker, I spoke to the ACCC chair about these matters today. My office was briefed on Sunday. We're very grateful for the efforts of the good work of the people at the ACCC to safeguard Australian consumers. We're also helping them hold tech companies to account by increasing the maximum penalty for this kind of behaviour by 5 times to $50 million. But we also know, Mr Speaker, that the job is not done, and that's why we're doing more work to ban unfair trading practices under the Australian consumer law. Now, our changes will address a wide range of dodgy practices, including traps that make it difficult or confusing to cancel a subscription, hidden fees and charges at different stages of a purchase, deceptive or manipulative practices online, actions that make it difficult for people to report problems with their products or services. Now, this is about easing the cost of living and getting a fair go for consumers and suppliers. And here I want to pay tribute to my colleague, the Assistant Minister for Competition, for his work in this area. He's doing a mountain of work when it comes to the consumer law. I appreciate it. I pay tribute to him for that, and I thank him for that as well. He's just written to his state and territory colleagues to seek their agreement to these reforms. Mr Speaker, accelerating technological change is a big opportunity for Australian businesses and workers and consumers, but it can't come at any cost. We need to make sure it works for people, not against people. That's why so much of our economic policy is focused on maximising the benefits while we minimise the risks of emerging technology, including the work by the Minister for Industry, the member for Parramatta, and also this week on copyright by the Attorney-General.
Give the call to the member for Lyne.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Industry and Innovation. James Strong, Tari's second-largest private sector employer, produces aluminium cans from ingots produced by Tomago Aluminium Smelter. James Strong has seen its own energy prices surge by 65% over the last 4 years. The potential closure of Tomago has not only put at risk the future of thousands of Hunter jobs, but also the investment by James Strong in Taree. Will the minister admit that Labor's energy policy is killing local jobs and local manufacturing in the Hunter and in communities like Taree?
I'll hear from the Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, we dealt with this yesterday, where the actual question at the end is on a different area or a different portfolio to where the question was directed.
Yeah. I'll hear from the manager.
Yesterday there was some confusion about some of the ministers answering questions. This is directly industry policy. Every industry in Australia is talking about their energy prices, every single industrial operation. So we're asking the industry representative about energy costs for industry shutting down in Australia. Yes, we are. Yes, we are asking that.
This is
it's valid. It can be. If you're the government, you can direct the question where you want.
The manager's made his point. Appreciate that. He is correct. This is a slightly different scenario where the minister for representing the Minister for Industry is asking about the Minister for Energy's policy in relating to his portfolio. So that's totally okay. Order. I know you're trying to help. You're doing your best. But look, I'm just trying to help you as well. So help me help you. So what we're going to do is call the minister. He can answer the question because the member for Lyne quite rightly has asked him a question about her electorate and the impact, and he can deal with that. And then if he wishes to, under the standing order, or under the practice, he can then defer to the other minister to add to assist the member's question. So the minister representing the Minister for Industry and Science now has the call, and he may choose to allocate the remainder of the question to another minister responsible. The minister has the call.
I thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank you for the question about the future of the aluminium industry. As I said in an earlier answer, we're fighting every day to keep Tomago open. Yeah. We're working very hard with the state government in Rio, and we've said that every option is to be considered. Nothing is off the table, and we're working very hard because, as we said, the hunt has been very good to Rio, and it's time that Rio is good to the hunter. In terms of the broader issues around the aluminium sector, one issue your question went to is energy prices. So it's incumbent on me to point out where the wholesale price is at the moment. The current wholesale price in New South Wales is $70.58. When we came to power in May 2022, it was $320 under your party. $320 compared to $70. So energy prices is one issue that we're all dealing with at the moment, but they've come down considerably at a wholesale level since we came into government. In terms of other industry policies, we won't be lectured on support for the aluminium sector by the Liberal Party. Let's remind people what's happened over the last few years. In 2014, when the last aluminium smelter was being considered for closure, which was Point Henry, what did those opposite do? They did nothing. They didn't engage with Alcoa. They didn't engage with the Victorian government. In fact, they cheered the closure of that smelter. Joe Hockey, then Treasurer, said we shouldn't be despondent about the closure of the Alcoa facility, and I tabled a news article quoting Joe Hockey saying we shouldn't be despondent about those jobs going. Almost 1,000 jobs went. Those opposite did nothing about it. In fact, they actively cheered it on. By contrast, we've got a range of industry policies to support the aluminium sector, from fixing mining approvals while protecting the environment.
Look, just resume your seat for a second. This will assist the House. The member for Wannon, I don't want to take your point of order because the minister was straying, but just as you probably agree with me, he's now talking about the policy he was asked about. If he strays off again, I'll be watching closely. How about that? The minister, in continuation, making sure he's directly relevant to the question he was asked about the member for Lyne to assist the House.
Thank you, Speaker. And as I was saying, we've got a range of policies to strengthen and grow the aluminium supply chain, from fixing mining approvals while protecting the environment, securing affordable gas for alumina refineries through the gas market review, and backing our smelters with the green aluminium production credit. We're going to keep working on this, and we're going to keep working with Rio and the state government to explore every option. Unlike those opposite, we don't cheer when manufacturing jobs go overseas. We don't dare them to leave. We fight for manufacturing jobs because every day we back Aussie workers, unlike those opposite, whose election policy was based on Tomago being closed down. That's what they think about manufacturing in this country. We get up, we fight for aluminium jobs every day like we fight for every manufacturing job, unlike those opposite.
The call to the member for Hunter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government making medicines cheaper for all Australians? How is this helping to improve the health of Australians with kidney disease?
Give a call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker, and thanks to the Government's Special Envoy for Men's Health for that question and for joining me and Kidney Health Australia at their terrific dialysis bus that visited the Parliament earlier today. More than 2.5 million Australians have kidney disease, Mr Speaker, but only 2.25 million of them don't even know it because, frankly, the signs and the symptoms of kidney disease usually only emerge after you've already lost about 90% of your kidney function. And that's why regular testing for Australians who are at high risk of kidney disease is just so important. People with diabetes, people with high blood pressure, First Nations Australians who are over the age of 18, Mr Speaker, because early detection allows patients to get the treatment that they need before they get to the point of kidney failure, which is going to require dialysis or even a kidney transplant. And there are terrific new treatments coming onto the market, Mr Speaker. Last year we listed Jardiance for a small limited group of Australians with a particular type of kidney disease, listed it on the PBS. But this week we are expanding that PBS listing dramatically, Mr Speaker. From Saturday, 70,000 more Australians will get access to this drug. Right now they're paying $60 a month. Pensioners like Peter, who joined the member for Hunter and me out the front of Parliament House, he'll just pay $7.70, not $60 a month, but $7.70 a month. And that's the magic of the PBS, Mr Speaker. The best medicines available around the world at affordable prices. And we're making those prices even cheaper, Mr Speaker. Already Australians have saved more than $1.5 billion at the pharmacy counter through our measures. And on the 1st of January, the price for general patients will drop even further to $25 a script, the same price it was way back in 2004. And for pensioners like Peter, they won't see an increase in their medicines prices for the rest of the decade, Mr Speaker. But returning to what I said earlier, you need to get the test to know if you need the treatment, Mr Speaker, and no one in this House does more than the member for Hunter, the Special Envoy for Men's Health, to encourage people to look after their own health, particularly Australian men who we know are particularly bad at it. Last month, he helped kick off the We for CKD campaign, CKD being chronic kidney disease, Mr Speaker, at a very big event up in the Mural Hall. And, Mr Speaker, you'll be pleased to hear he didn't just give a speech, he gave a sample as well, Mr Speaker, in the Mural Hall. And in a real high point, my time as Health Minister, he got me to hold the sample up for a photo. He's a hard man to say no to, Mr Speaker, just showing how determined we are to do everything we can to strengthen Medicare.
Give the call to the member for Indi.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Infrastructure. The Major and Local Community Infrastructure Program opened on 1 September as an invitation-only program, providing up to $560 million to identified projects. With the merit-based Growing Regions program now out of money, organisations and councils in my electorate are asking how they can be invited to apply to this program. Minister, how does a community organisation or local government secure an invitation to the Major and Local Community Infrastructure Program?
The call to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government.
Thank you very much, and can I thank the member for Indi for her question. As the member would know, and I have had numerous discussions with her about this, is that at elections, political parties make election commitments. And then under the grant rules, we are required to establish a program to then fund, assess and contract those election commitments. And that is what that fund does. That is the same way in which the Community Development Grants program of those opposite was supposed to be used, but if I'm asked about that, I might talk a little bit more about that as well. But of course, in terms of what we are delivering in community infrastructure currently, we are already delivering over billions of dollars of community infrastructure projects across our regions and our suburbs. Those programs have included $317.65 million through Thriving Suburbs for 30 projects, $587 million through the Growing Regions program for 110 projects that are currently being delivered, $67.6 million under the Urban Precincts and Partnerships program, and the
$230.3. Minister will pause. The member for Indi on a point of order.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. On relevance, I appreciate the list the minister's giving us, but the question was, how do our local councils and community organisations secure an invitation to this special program?
I think the minister did address that part of the question at the beginning of her answer. I was listening carefully where she specifically addressed the explanation, but I may allow her to continue and making sure she's directly relevant, but I think she did address that part of the question.
Answered your question in relation to that program and what the requirements of me under that particular program. But as I was saying, we are delivering billions of dollars of community infrastructure projects right the way through the regions and our suburbs. And I note in particular there are a number of projects being delivered in the member's own seat at the moment. She's done very well out of the Regional Precincts and Partnerships program and the Urban Precincts and the Growing Regions program as well. And those projects I know are incredibly important to her community because she's advocated very strongly for them. So from the Benalla Art Gallery, from the Lords Around the Ground package, the Eildon Maritime and Community Hub, Port Cump Baseball Club, they are all projects that are being delivered in the member for Indi's electorate. And I could list projects right the way across the country in seats of those opposite, in the crossbench and over here as well. And that also comes on the back of this government's doubling of the Roads to Recovery funding, which is seeing an increase on the funding that those opposite provided, an increase for local road funding right the way across the country in our regional areas.
Yes, they'll hear from the Leader of the House before I call any other member.
Just to raise a point of order, understanding Order 90, reflections on members. During that answer, there was a serious reflection of an improper motive made by the member for Goldstein, and it should be withdrawn.
I think to assist the House, if the member for Goldstein made a comment, may assist the House just to quickly withdraw and so we can move on.
I had to withdraw. Whatever.
Thank you, member for Goldstein. Order. Member for Goldstein's done the right thing, and we'll move on. The member for Menzies has the call.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Communications. How is the Albanese Labor government protecting the next generation of Australians from the harms of social media and giving parents across the country peace of mind?
Call to the Minister for Communications, the Minister for Sport.
I thank the member for Menzies for his question and for his generous invitation to East Doncaster State High School and his electorate to talk to media students there about Australia's social media minimum age laws. We had a thoughtful discussion about the importance of balancing online safety and keeping young Australians connected. And I hope that the students follow their passion for communications and media and become cadet journalists and maybe even one day join the illustrious heights of the Federal Parliamentary Press Gallery. Today marks 43 days. Look, again, Mr Speaker, the opposition gave interjections last answer as well about the calibre of the Federal Parliamentary Press Gallery and yet again have done it here. We have...
Order. The Minister will just... Order. Yeah, I want to hear from the manager.
No, the member just reflected on the opposition. We did no such thing. We've made no reflections either way. She's strayed from her answer and asked you to draw her back to it.
Yeah, maybe we just get back to the answer now. And I'm not sure what the issue is, but we'll just continue on with the answer without reflections on anyone.
All righty. Today marks 43 days until Australia's world-leading social media minimum age laws, which will see the minimum age to access platforms like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat and TikTok increase to the age of 16. This reform will not just change a law on 10 December, it will change a generation. It will deliver lasting cultural change, and it will protect young Australians going through a critical development of progress in their lives, and from predatory algorithms, from harmful content and from toxic popularity meters. It will give them 3 more years to actually have a childhood and to build community and identity and resilience in the real world. And it will offer Australian parents some peace of mind knowing they don't have to worry what their teenager is being exposed to on their social media account, because the Albanese government has their back. As one Australian mum told me, I have friends who are about to move to Australia. They have 2 daughters. Their eldest, who is 13, said she would need to get on Snapchat and Instagram when they move. The parents told their 13-year-old it would be illegal in Australia until she was 16, and her response was, "Well, that's fine. I only wanted to do it because I thought everybody else would be on there." That is the kind of cultural change that Australia can look forward to, and that is the kind of cultural change that Australia can be proud of. Mr Speaker, we are not expecting perfection, but we are expecting social media platforms to understand and comply with their legal and social responsibilities and to make a meaningful difference. And to help Australian families prepare, we have launched a national education campaign airing on television, radio and digital channels across the country. The campaign points parents, carers and young people to helpful resources on the eSafety website. And in response to feedback I've heard from young Australians who are worried about how these laws will change their lives, last week I hosted a roundtable with the Assistant Minister for Mental Health and 20 frontline mental health organisations. They stand ready to help anyone who needs assistance with navigating this change, because we understand that cultural change can be difficult, but with 7 out of 10 young people experiencing harm online, this is too important not to act.
Call to the honourable member for Longman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Under Labor, significant industrial facilities have closed down, been bailed out by the taxpayer or expressing significant concerns about their future. Minister, will you apologise to the workers, their families and communities impacted by the government's failed energy policies?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. The Minister has the call. The Minister for the Social Services is now warned. The Minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What I will do is what every member of this cabinet will do, which is work every day in the best interest of working Australians, Mr Speaker, to ensure that they have access to a brighter future, to ensure that they have access to the jobs opportunity created in a decarbonising world, to ensure that we don't repeat the 10 years of denial and delay which saw 24 coal-fired power stations announce their closure and the government of the day do absolutely nothing about it. That saw the government of the day put their head in their hands and pretend they could ignore the problem. And they left Australia's workers exposed, Mr Speaker, and they gloated when an industrial facility closed. They goaded them into closing. At this dispatch box, the then Treasurer of Australia dared Holden to close their operations in Australia, which had existed for generations. The then Treasurer of Australia said when an aluminium smelter announced its closure, we shouldn't get too despondent about one facility closing. What an outrageous offence to the workers of Australia. Not something that will happen, Mr Speaker, on our watch. What we will do is work every day with every ounce of energy we have to ensure that Australians have access to good, well-paying jobs, to ensure that Australia's natural advantages, our national advantages, are seized as we embark on the path to net zero, because we are unified in our belief in the benefits of net zero. We are unified in the belief that Australia's best days are ahead of us, and we are unified in our belief that we cannot return to 10 years of denial and dysfunction.
Give a call to the honourable member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How are homes, businesses and community groups embracing the opportunity of clean energy and acting on climate change? What policy proposals would undo that progress?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Melbourne for her question. The member for Melbourne said to the people of Melbourne in May let's put progress over protest, and the people of Melbourne responded with enthusiasm, and it's no easy task to defeat a leader of another party, and there are two people in this parliament who can tell us how it's done, Mr Speaker. The member for Melbourne is one of them, and the member for Melbourne asked me about Australians embracing opportunities, and Australians are making progress, with 101,942 households installing a cheaper home battery since the 1st of July. And you know what that means, Mr Speaker? Of interest to the member for Melbourne, that's more than the capacity MCG, which the member for Melbourne represents. When you consider that most of those households would have more than one person in them, that's even more. It's even more, but just on the number of households, that's more than the MCG can hold. And the other thing, Mr Speaker, is I told the House yesterday that we had added 2 gigawatt-hours of storage. Now, an interesting fact is that it took Australia 4 years, from the time we installed our first big battery, it took us 4 years to get to 1 gigawatt-hour. Australians working with their government have installed 2 gigawatt-hours in the last 4 months. Not 4 years, 4 months. That is real progress, that is real delivery, and that is real achievement. Now, I'm asked by the honourable member what could endanger this progress, and what could endanger the progress is an alternative government that doesn't know what the objective is, let alone what the pathway is. This is a party which went to the last election with a policy very different to ours and didn't get the memo from the Australian people, and has used every day since to argue about what the possible objective is. And we know that there were meetings today and meetings this week, and the Canavan review is due on net zero. We are all waiting with bated breath to hear what Senator Canavan could possibly think about net zero. He admitted on Insiders on the weekend that there's been no economic modelling. And the former leader, the member for Riverina, was asked how it's taking so long.
Order.
And he said, well, it's a process. It's not a McDonald's drive-through. You can't just turn up and ask the report to get it within 5 seconds of ordering. Well, you can work out in 4 months since the election or more whether you believe in climate change or not, I would posit, Mr Speaker. And the opposition spokesman was out this morning, was asked when the opposition would finally declare their net zero, and he said, well, I hope before Christmas. I hope before Christmas. That's what I'm working towards. Well, I hope before Christmas, Mr Speaker, the opposition comes up with some policies. And I hope the number one policy is whether they believe in human-induced climate change. We know that plenty of them over there do not. And we know that they don't want to seize the economic opportunities of action on climate change. We know that they want to go back to 10 years of denial and delay. Well, it's just as well there's an alternative, and that's the delivery that this government is delivering for Australian households and business.
Call to the Acting Prime Minister.
I ask that further questions be placed on the notice.